President.
Thank you very much. Yes. Well, thank you very much, everybody. A lot of progress is being made, as you see. And we're reopening our country, and it's very exciting. And it should have never happened. This plague should never have happened. It could have been stopped, but people chose not to stop it. And it's a very sad thing for the world, 184 countries at least. But it's a great honor to have you with us, friends of mine, who have been truly great business leaders and are great business leaders. And you're opening up your company again, too, if you think about it, right? You're sort of doing a reopening, but they're great companies and they'll do very well, hopefully better than ever before. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing tremendous pent-up demand. And it's a beautiful thing to see. So it's wonderful to have America industry leaders, and that's what you are, true leaders, to the White House. You've been here before, all of you, and we've talked about it in different times. We built the greatest economy in the history of the world, and nobody even disputes that. And one day they walk in, they say, "Sir, we're going to have to close it up until we get rid of this hidden enemy, this terrible scourge." And that's what we did, and we did the right thing. We did an incredible job. We worked with the governments. We worked with states all over the country. We had no ventilators, or very few, from previous administrations, and we became the king of ventilators. We have thousands and thousands of ventilators. We're now helping other countries with ventilators. We had old-fashioned tests that didn't work. They were really obsolete. They didn't work. They were broken. And we end up, the testing has been incredible now, and to a level that nobody's seen. I got a call from President Moon of South Korea. He said, "Congratulations, your testing is just, nobody's ever seen anything like we're doing." We've tested more than all countries put together, and millions of tests, and the highest quality test. But it's great to be with you. We're joined by Matt Maddox of Wynn Resorts, Chris Reynolds of Toyota, Chris Nassetta of Hilton, Josh Bolton of the Business Roundtable, Walt Immer of Waffle House, and thanks to Vice President Mike Pence, Secretary Steve Mnuchin, and Secretary Eugene Scalia. That Scalia has very good genes. Where's Scalia? He has very good genes, that guy, I'll tell you. Scalia, he's got the Scalia genes, right? We all know what that means. We mourn, and I have to say this so strongly, we mourn every life tragically lost to the invisible enemy, and we're heartened that the worst of the pain and suffering is going to be behind us. We think we really have crossed a big boundary, and much better days are ahead. And I often say I see the light at the end of the tunnel very strongly. This demand is going to be incredible. I think next year is going to be an incredible year for our economy. I think the fourth quarter is going to be really, really good. Kevin, we were talking about that before. You maybe will say something. And we're going to be in a transition quarter next quarter, the third quarter. And I think we'll do very, very nicely there from an economic standpoint. But thanks to the devotion of the American people, the number of new cases continues to decline. The United States has now conducted nearly 6 million tests, far more than any other nation, as I said. So many tests, and so much has been learned about what we're fighting. And if it does rear up a little bit in the fall, or even a lot, we'll be able to put it out. We'll put out the embers, or we'll put out the flames. 2 weeks ago, we released guidelines to give states a real strong indication of what we want and how we want it done. We've really had a good relationship with the states. Mike Pence has worked very, very hard with the task force. He's headed the task force, so importantly, with a great group of people. And it's just been incredible what's taken place over a very short period of time, including the gowns and all of the surgical equipment and The safety equipment and masks. People don't talk about masks anymore. That's the other thing. They're not talking about masks. They were talking about where are the masks, because we had a cupboard that was bare. We didn't have a lot of equipment or medical supplies in the cupboard that we inherited. Now we're taking in millions and millions of masks. I'll give you a number that you won't even believe we have in order. 500 million masks coming in. And we've delivered millions and millions and tens of millions of masks all over. So you don't hear about that anymore either. You don't hear about ventilators, you don't hear about masks. And you shouldn't be hearing about testing, but that's the last thing they can complain about, I guess. You know, if we do 2 million tests, they said, how come you didn't do 3? Well, we do 3, and then they say, how come you didn't do 4? That's like a dream for the media. But we've done incredible with testing, and you'll see over the next coming weeks, Mike, you may want to speak about that a little bit, but over the next coming weeks, you'll see some astonishing numbers. I don't know that all of that's even necessary. You have some governors that love the tests. You have others that like doing it a different way, an old-fashioned way, with some testing, but we're going maximum testing. We've encouraged the more than 30 states that have taken steps to resume economic activity already. We've given them tremendous encouragement and support. We're backing them 100%. You know, many governors have called me, telling me their plans, laying them out. Governor of Texas, Oklahoma, governor of Arkansas, many, many governors. I spoke with Governor Cuomo. We had a great talk today on a different subject, but he wants to get open. Everybody wants to get open. They want to get open, and they want to get back to business. And their constituents, the citizens of this country, want to get back. And that's what's happening. So I just want to perhaps start off by introducing our vice president, and then we'll go around the table and you'll introduce yourself and say a few words to the media. You're covered by very serious media out here. The audience can't see it, but these are the most wonderful human beings. Actually, this is a nice group. I can't imagine. We actually have a nice group of people. But Mike, if you could say a few words, please, that would be great, and then we'll go around the table. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank all the distinguished business leaders who are here and the literally millions of Americans that are employed at the businesses represented around this table. It's remarkable to think, Mr. President, that before the coronavirus epidemic came ashore, we had seen extraordinary growth in the American economy, not just the stock market setting records, millions of new jobs, more Americans working than ever before. But in January, when you stood up the White House Coronavirus Task Force, you said we had one mission, and that was to save lives and to make sure that the healthcare providers in America would be able to render the level of care to any American struggling with the coronavirus that we would want our own family members to have. And thanks to your leadership, thanks to the partnership that we forged with states across the country, working with local health officials, Mr. President, as you said yesterday, we have light at the end of the tunnel. We really are encouraged by the progress in even the hot spots around the country. Cases are leveling off, and in some areas going down. Hospitalizations are declining, even in the greater New York City area. That's a testament to the American people, to the way the American people now nearly 45 days ago embraced the guidelines to slow the spread. And as we come to the end of this mitigation period, states across the country have all embraced those same mitigation and social distancing efforts. The American people have put them into practice. We've saved lives. We've protected the vulnerable. We've preserved our healthcare system, and we're well on our way to healing our land. As you mentioned, testing will be a part of how we move to the next stage. It was just on the 16th that you laid out a plan for opening up America again. And as we sit here today, I'm informed that 35 states have already released formal opening plans, many of which are consulting directly with our team here in the administration, and we're going to continue to work with all of them. Testing is a major part of it, and I can assure you, Mr. President, and the American people that we'll continue to scale testing across the country. We're doing more than 1 million tests a week now, 5.8 million tests total. We expect by next month very quickly to be at a capacity to do more than 2 million tests a week. We laid out our blueprint for testing, and as I heard again today on a conference call with America's governors in agricultural states, there's great enthusiasm for the blueprint for testing that you unveiled earlier this week, and we'll be surging supplies and resources and reagents into the states to support that increased testing. But we know that ultimately we've got to find a way to help America get back to work, and having the opportunity to hear from these business leaders about best practices that businesses are considering, whether they be restaurants like Waffle House or major corporations and hotels. We welcome that. We look forward to partnering with you, as the President said. America works when America is working, and we're absolutely committed, as soon as it is safe and responsible to do so, to partner with governors across the country, partner with businesses across the country, and open up America again. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mike. And just before we go around, Puritan Medical Supplies, a wonderful company, will produce 40 million additional swabs per month starting in May. Now, they've opened up a very big process, and that was funding authorized by the Defense Production Act. So that'll help the states. And again, we're there to help the states. A lot of states can buy their own swabs. It's not that big a deal, but we're here to help them. We want them to be successful. We had, as you know, the governor of Louisiana in today, and we told that story, which has been a really great story. And we had the governor of Florida in yesterday, and that was a great story. These were just incredible what's been happening. So maybe we'll start with my left, and Chris, you want to take it and tell them about you? I know a lot about your company, but maybe a lot of people don't. Tell them the story.
Indeed you do. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me back to the White House. I was thinking on the way down here today, I'm based in Washington, and I was here about 6 weeks ago. The world was a different place. We were not at the beginning, but we were in the thick of it fighting this war. And we've come a long way. We've made tremendous progress thanks to your leadership and the leadership of the administration that is represented around this table and otherwise. So thank you for that. We are very supportive as an industry and certainly as a company on reopening America. We think it's critical that that happen. The guidelines that you and the administration have outlined, we are incredibly supportive of opening in a safe and healthy way, which you and Vice President Pence just described. We have been trying at Hilton and as an industry to be part of the solution throughout. So in the middle of the crux of the crisis, when first responders were unable to get housing, even though our industry and our company has its share of problems, we provided with American Express 1 million rooms free of charge to first responders. Those rooms are still being provided to first responders as they fight the war. But now as we think about, and I spend my time predominantly on the reopening of our business, what we realize is that people do want to get out. They want safety. They want to be doing it in a way that is safe. They want to feel good about it, but they want to get out. They want to visit their family, their friends, their loved ones. They ultimately want to get around the country and do business again. And in order to do that, they want to feel safe. So all the work that you all are doing is obviously, as an administration in the states, is critical. What we're trying to do in our part is develop the best health and hygiene standards that exist. So when they stay in our hotels, they feel safe. So what we launched just this week was in a partnership with Lysol, one of the most respected brands with some of the best scientists on cleanliness and killing germs, and the Mayo Clinic, one of the most reputable health organizations in the world. We have developed and are working on the absolute best protocols so that when people come into our hotels, the rooms have been cleaned, they've been sealed, the public spaces have, and that they can feel safe and secure in that environment so they can get out and see the people they want to see and see this great country again like they used to. We've also been trying to work with the industry, and industry, to their credit, is trying to mobilize to create a consistent set of standards so that this isn't just Hilton. The whole industry, would have a set of health and hygiene standards that would make people comfortable. We will be sharing it with the administration, sharing it with governors already to try and create a standard. We stand ready as Hilton, and we stand ready as an industry to help get America open and moving again.
That's great. Thank you very much. Great company, and you'll have it up and running again very soon. I know you very well, and you're going to do a great job reopening. We're reopening Hilton, and we're reopening our nation. A lot of companies are very excited right now. Steve, do you want to say just a couple of words about where we are with the different things, please?
Well, I think, thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. It's great to see these companies here today. It's great to see the reopening. I think we're making an enormous amount of progress. Yesterday, we met with small businesses that we saw the benefit of the programs. Today, we're meeting with big businesses. I was particularly pleased to hear from Chris. He's been able to access the capital markets. Just the announcement of our facilities with the Federal Reserve created liquidity so that public companies could access the capital markets and not need to come to the governments for support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Walt Amer with Waffle House in Atlanta, Georgia. It's an honor to be here today. Thank you for including me, probably a well-dressed cook and dishwasher. I don't know about big companies, but we're happy to be included. And thank you too, Mr. Vice President, for all of your support. I am here representing our industry, I believe, and in large part the independent restaurant companies of America that are out here that have helped create the fabric of our country with the restaurants that they've put in our communities and the connections they have to the communities. And we, in a small way, feel like we are a part of that. We did have the opportunity this week in the state of Georgia and the state of Tennessee to open up some of our dining rooms to dine-in customers again. And it was very welcomed by our people. It was welcomed by our customers. Our customers are ready to see some sign of progress that we are beginning to move forward. We've done it in a safe way. We have followed all of the guidelines, your guidelines, the CDC guidelines, and how to make that happen. But what we believe when we started out on this journey, we said we really have several goals. And the first goal was we wanted it to be a safe environment for our customers and for our associates. And our second goal was to create financial safety for our workforce. And I wanted to thank you personally on behalf of our workforce, for all of the stimulus funds that have gone directly to the workforce of America. It is making a difference. It has made a difference. It is keeping the economic engine turning ever so slowly right now, but it is helping keep people put food on their table and a roof over their heads. So on behalf of our workforce, I thank you for that. As we got into this, we felt like we needed to make a lot of adjustments coming in. One of the great things about a restaurant and the entire restaurant community, the restaurants are the second largest private employer in the country. And there is 1 million restaurants out there, and probably no other industry has been hit as hard from a revenue standpoint or a layoff and furlough standpoint. But restaurants, if you think about it.
What's number one?
What's number one? Healthcare is my understanding.
Really? Good.
Yeah, private employers. I assume you guys are number one overall. But so, restaurants have a unique opportunity to help lead us out of this. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is that we have been practicing safe food handling for years. The safety of our guests has always been paramount. So what we have done is we've taken a workforce that is trained to do that and added more sanitation practices to it, more touch points, more social distancing as you have prescribed and the CDC has prescribed. And we have basically turned our restaurants into the ability pretty much at half capacity to seat guests in our restaurant. And it's given us an opportunity to get the wheels of the economy, our engine turning a little bit, because the next thing we want to make sure is we protect the jobs for the people that work for us and the people in our industry. So we're very appreciative. I did want to say that ever since my daughter was young, she every time she saw the WH on the TV screen, she thought that stood for Waffle House. So I don't know if you have the trademark for the WH or we do, but we could probably work something out if I wore my WH tie for you today.
This one was here first. I know that.
Well, we might have to talk then. So, but thank you for including us, and on behalf of all the restaurant operators out there in the country, we appreciate this opportunity to begin the journey to move forward.
And thank you very much, Walt. We appreciate it. Chris Reynolds, Chris of Toyota.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you first for inviting us. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and giving us an opportunity to share how Toyota is working within the American automotive industry to return to work safely, to reopen America safely. We announced on March 18 that we were suspending production due to the awful scourge of the coronavirus. On March 19, we started to plan to reopen. We started right away. And just to give you some quick background on Toyota, we've been here in the U.S. for over 60 years, 1,500 dealers, $1.2 million units of cars and trucks manufactured last year, 475,000 people employed, including a great number in the state of Indiana, from where our Vice President is from. Going to the next slide, with that as background, really are trying to apply three fundamental principles to how we're going to return to work. Principle number one is we need to stay connected with our team members. So every week we conduct phone surveys with all 32,000 of our factory workers, asking them how are they feeling, what's their health, what's their family's well-being, what's their confidence level in returning to work. And we also preview with them all of the new safety protocols and processes that we're going to put in place. We share pictures of the reconfigured factory workplace so they can have confidence that we're doing everything possible, Mr. President, to keep them healthy, safe, and productive. The second principle that we follow is that we've prepared our plants and facilities for safe and healthy working. So, like many here, we're engaging in marked off areas that require social distancing, the provision of masks and face shields where appropriate, daily temperature screening, as well as a daily app-based questionnaire that before you come into work asks you, how are you feeling today? Do you have any symptoms? So that we can try and manage and contain the virus. And we're using best practices not only from your own Center for Disease Control, Mr. President, but also from around the world to try and increase the safety and health of our team members as they produce. And then the third principle is we're not date-driven, we're data-driven. So our current plan is to open on May 11. It'll be a slow, gradual opening of our plants around the country, but we're flexible. Every plant will be different. We'll have staggered shifts. We'll do many other things to comply with the Centers for Disease Control guidelines, and our goal is to prioritize team member and health. Mr. President, one final point. We all know that our team members live in communities. It's not just the workforce that they're in communities. So what Toyota has done is it's tried to support the communities in which our team members live, including manufacturing 500,000 face shields just since the start of this crisis,
Right,
to distribute to healthcare centers, nursing homes, first responders around the country, so that our team members can feel that we're also part of the community. And we've also put together, just released yesterday, a community service announcement aimed at those communities of color that have been particularly impacted by the lethal nature of this virus. This announcement includes celebrities encouraging everyone to engage in safe practices promoted by the Centers for Disease Control. So we think it's a holistic process. We think it's also a process that requires commitment, and thank you for the commitment that your administration has demonstrated. We're going to get through this as a family, Mr. President. Thank you.
So Chris, what's Toyota doing in Japan? Are they open? Are they semi-open? What's happening in Japan?
Mr. President, in Japan, the situation varies prefecture by prefecture. It depends on the plant. Some facilities are operating, some are not, and that's really a function of both the situation on the ground in a given prefecture like our state, or it's a function of demand. So it varies, sir.
Well, great job. You're going to have a great Olympics next year, too, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Really great Olympics. Thank you very much. Matt Maddox, please. Wynn Resorts. Hi,
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to echo what you're saying about testing and testing capacity. We have seen a real expansion in testing capacity in Las Vegas, so much so that our university hospital is going from a couple hundred tests a day to 10,000 tests a day. They don't have enough people to test. So I signed a deal with them to allow all Wynn employees to get tests anytime for free, and they're going to set up on-site testing. So that's moving forward. We also, during this time, decided to pay all 15,000 of our employees, from housekeepers to head of sales.
Right.
And we did that because I thought that could help accelerate the economy. So as an example, we took our call center and we've had our call center team up with the health district to become contact tracers. We tripled the amount of contact tracing ability on us for our state to get that moving.
Great.
And we published a 23-page plan for the whole world to see 10 days ago that lays out exactly what we think a strip opening would look like. We have thermal cameras at our entrances. We have company-supplied PPE. We have just about every UV technology that you can think of for disinfectant. So we're ready, and I'm encouraging our state that we need to begin a phased approach and get back to business.
So Matt, when do you think the Las Vegas Strip will be opening? Do you have any idea?
So the plan that I put forward to the state is this week, let's start phase one, golf course, tennis courts, small restaurants, small retails, nail salons, et cetera, with social distancing in place. Judge the benchmarks that we've prepared. We prepared 3 benchmarks based on disease growth, ICU capacity, and testing positivity rate. We're going to have them out there public every day. If we're inside those benchmarks in 3 weeks, then on Memorial Day, I would hope that we're open.
And you have a lot of excess testing capacity. That's great.
We do.
Others have said that too.
We do.
Ron DeSantis said it yesterday.
So all 12,000 of our employees in Las Vegas can now go get a test.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Great
Sure.
job. Say hello to all of my friends.
I will. I
All
will,
right.
of course.
Josh Bolton, please. Josh, Business Roundtable.
Mr. President.
And does a great job at the Business Roundtable. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm Josh Bolton. I'm CEO of the Business Roundtable, an organization of nearly 200 of America's leading CEOs who collectively employ over 15 million people. Every sector of the economy is represented in our organization, so we have an opportunity to get a view of the big picture. And Mr. President, we don't need to tell you that right now the big picture is very challenging. We're facing the largest economic crisis certainly in our lifetimes, and all of our members are keenly aware of that. We think now is the moment that it's critical that the country start getting back to business as rapidly as possible, not just for the health of the economy, but for the health and well-being of all of our citizens in our country. Successful reopening will depend, as the other panelists have said, on a lot of different elements, and if I may, I'd like to highlight 3. Top of the list is safety first. Business Roundtable companies are all uniformly committed, above all, to protecting the lives and the well-being of their employees and their customers. And that means following sound public health guidance like the guidance that has issued here from the very capable people on your team. At Business Roundtable, all of our members either already have in place or are formulating careful plans for responsibly transitioning back to work, like the plans we've heard about just now this afternoon. They're devising new measures around personal protective equipment, cleaning procedures, virus screening, ongoing social distancing in the workplace, all of the things that you know about, and they all seem to be excellent plans. Which takes me to my second point, which is consistent guidelines. No matter how good every company's transition plan is, and we've heard a lot of good ones here this afternoon, public confidence will be undermined and the speed of the reopening will be dramatically slowed if we're all doing different things. And that's why the Business Roundtable has called for clear, science-based guidance from the federal and state governments on appropriate safety measures in multiple workplace and commercial settings at different stages in the progression of the disease. The White House guidelines, Mr. President, that you highlighted in your first slide, the ones that came out 2 weeks ago, are an excellent start in identifying a common set of phases for dealing with reopening. And a number of states are off to a really good start in identifying recommended safety measures in each of various different settings. Now we think, since we are now on the cusp of many places being ready to reopen more fully, we think more specific guidance is needed. And so on Friday, we sent to the Vice President and to all the governors a set of recommendations on the kinds of consistent guidance our businesses feel is necessary for the safest and fastest reopening. And we're grateful for the chance to engage with the Vice President's team and all of your task force on those issues. And I should say, Mr. Vice President, that everybody in your administration, despite the heavy burdens on them, has been very receptive to taking advice from the business community, and we're very grateful for that. Final point, ample testing and monitoring. The only thing worse than an unnecessarily slow recovery is a reversed recovery. So to avoid serious setbacks, as our businesses reopen, we need to stay vigilant, identifying rapidly and isolating new COVID cases and carefully tracking the spread of the disease, as I know your team is working very hard on. The robust testing and other forms of monitoring are the keys to the vigilance, and they'll also teach us what's working and what's not working and allow us to make adjustments. It'll take a while for our economy to return to normal, but the traditional American virtues of vigilance, adaptation, and innovation, we are confident will see us through and get us to the other side of this crisis as safely and rapidly as possible. Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Josh. That's great. The numbers, when you look at the stock market today, the enthusiasm is great. It's up very substantially, as you know. And I think people are seeing a very big year coming up next year, and I think they're seeing a very big fourth quarter. Larry, would you like to say, Larry Kudlow, a few words, please?
Just a few words. Thanks to everybody, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, and all the business folks, and my friend Steve Mnuchin. This is a tough one. I've been around a while. This is a tough one, and the contraction's going to go on for a bit. But I like what I hear around the table, and I agree with the President. We will see a growing, recovering economy by summertime and the back end of the year, and it's going to extend into 2021. That's what I think is going to happen, and I think the stock market is signaling some of that. I wanted to buck it over to my dear friend and colleague, Kevin Hassett. He gave it to me over in the Oval yesterday. I want to send it over to him today, but I appreciate it, Mr. President. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Larry. And Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, I think when I first came back in early March, that it was clear that you had a first objective with respect to the economy of building a bridge to the next shore, the other shore, when we could restart the economy. And it was really massive fiscal action that made it so that a day like today could be possible, whereas you look around, there are all these businesses that have the wherewithal to start up, and it's because they've stayed connected to their employees. The checks that we've mailed to citizens means that there's going to be demand for their products. And so the big negative numbers that we're going to be seeing over the next few months don't necessarily mean what they would have meant absent all those policies. And so I think that we all have a great deal of optimism about how quickly the economy can come back, and it's precisely because of what we see in the room today, that people have come up with plans based on the guidance that your task force, Mr. Vice President, have given that make it so that they can operate safely, and they're gradually across the country opening up and getting back to work, and they're able to do so because of the lifeline that you, Mr. President, threw them with all of the first three phases of fiscal policy. Thank you.
And it's great to have you back, too. Very talented guy. At least he made a lot of good predictions, and your predictions all turned out. Between you and Larry, that's a tremendous team. Thank you both very much. Gene, Secretary of a very important thing called labor. What's more important than labor?
Well, it is so important. And Mr. President, I was pleased to be able to tell you earlier today that as of yesterday, all 50 states in the District of Columbia are now offering the additional $600 in unemployment insurance that was part of the CARES Act that you signed last month. This was an additional benefit on top of what the states were already making available in unemployment. And one important part of